All right. Well, hello there, friends. We are so excited to be back with you. We are live with Trans Northland for our bi-weekly conversation where we've been checking in with community members who are a part of our Northland expansive community that we are building together with your help. And so, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube, maybe you're listening to this after the fact, wherever you get podcasts. We're just really excited that you are joining us, that you're a part of our community. And so before I say anything else, I got to tell you who I am. My name is Sean Hayes, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And I am a co-founder and the executive director here at Trans Northland, where our mission is to provide support, resources, and connection to trans folks in the Northland. And again, when I say Northland, I mean expansive. All the folks. We're trying to connect with all the folks and provide those services. And today, I am super excited to welcome in just another fabulous trans person that I'm really excited to introduce you to. And that is my dear friend, Carver. So let's welcome Carver to Live with Trans Northland. Thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm kind of tickled to be here today.
I am also tickled, my friend. So thank you so much for taking time to join us. And I would love it if you want to take a couple minutes to kind of introduce yourself to our folks.
Sure. Well, my name's Carver, and I live in Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm 64 years old, so I'm kind of an old fart, as the is the way the clock goes. How would I describe myself? I love cats. I love the Boundary Waters. I like reading historical fiction. I'm the director of a nonprofit that helps people start businesses and nonprofits. And I'm kind of a summertime guy, so I'm glad the sunshine is out today, and I'm patiently waiting for summer to roll around.
I hear you. Yeah, the sun is out here too in Duluth, and it is needed. I feel like I need it today. So yeah, I'm going to also echo that. And we are getting closer, my friend. The days are getting longer. I just pointed that out to my daughter the other day. I was like, look, when I pick you up, it used to be dark, and now it's not completely dark anymore.
Yeah, exactly right.
So we are getting close to that favorite season of yours. So and so thanks. I'm just really excited to chat more with you. And as some folks know, one of our first segments that we do in these conversations is our Gender Joy segment, which is such a favorite of mine, I have to say. And we know how crucial joy is these days, my friends. And so really trying to be intentional with creating moments where we can not only create the joy in our lives, but then share that with folks. And hopefully that passes on the joy and extends it, right? And so, gender joy, gender euphoria. Carver, what do you have to share with us today? I'm so excited.
There's this, I live in my family home, the house that I grew up in. And there's a full-length mirror on the second floor outside of all the bedrooms. And I have hated that mirror my whole life. And nothing ever looked right. I never was happy with what I saw in the mirror. Everything was uncomfortable and caused me dysphoria. And I don't have that relationship with that mirror anymore. And every morning when I get ready for work and I get to put on the clothes that feel good to me, and I check my fit before I head downstairs and make sure everything's buttoned and zipped and tied. And I look at that mirror and it's like, damn, this feels really, really good. And I get to feel that every single morning. I'm just the luckiest guy ever. Yeah.
Man, hit me in the feels, my friend. Ooh, because I just know that, I've experienced that feeling as well. And it's not all the time for me, Sometimes I'm like, man, I don't love that reflection. You know, some days it's still hard, but man, feeling is just, there's nothing quite like it to just feel like at home in your person, and just like those things are connected and feel like they are interwoven together in a way where we didn't get to experience that for like most of our lives. So,
Exactly right. Yep.
gosh, I love that. You know, let me see. I got to think. So, gender joy for me, you know, it's funny. I've been going on this journey with my hair over the last several months. And that's actually been bringing me quite a bit of joy, I've got to say. I did recently go and visit my dear friend, the absolute best B, at Deep Cuts Barbershop in Duluth. If you're not familiar, Carver, the next time you're in town, you really should like set up an appointment and get your hairs cut, and maybe even a shave. Oh, they do like the fancy shaving stuff there too. But yeah, I got to get a haircut. And I was sort of debating. I was like, do I just chop it all off? You know, what do I do? And I feel like we came together, B and I, in our creativity, mainly her, giving me tips. And I was like, I want to keep a little bit because I love my curl. I just really like it, which hasn't always been the case. And it's sort of been a thing in the past for me that felt very feminine, and like even admitting that I used to have like long curly hair feels so bizarre to me. And yet I'm like, but I did have long curly hair. I do have curly hair that I love, and I'm just embracing it in new and exciting ways. So that is my gender joy. For those of you who are listening, I'm sorry you don't get to see me like playing with the curls as I'm saying these things, but you can tune in on Facebook or YouTube to check it out.
It looks great. It looks great, man.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And thanks for sharing some gender joy with us, Carver. So important. All the joy. Gender, joy, just in general. We need all of it. So, all right. Next up, we're going to mention a couple of events that Trans Northland has coming up, ways that you can connect with us and the community we're building. And also, we're building like into the larger community. We want to expand. And so a part of that is sharing really cool community events that are coming up that we have nothing to do with. We just want you to go and check out these cool events and support all of these amazing individuals in our community and organizations that are planning a lot of cool stuff. There's so many ways to get connected and to get involved. And so upcoming for Trans Northland, though, we are excited. The Free Mom Hugs group has reached out, and we are yet again partnering with those lovely folks to put on an event that we are calling Kindness, Crafts, and Connections. And I'm going to just read the little blurb that Melinda wrote up because I think it's perfect. And it says, things have been very heavy. Kindness costs nothing, but means everything. Come and have some yummy treats, do some crafts, practice self-care, and join us, Trans Northland, and the Free Mom Hugs, and dads and parents at the Imaginarium. So that's Saturday, the 21st of February, and it's going to be in the afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. At the Imaginarium. I might have already said that, so just remember. But join us there at the Imaginarium. We would love to see you. And those events have just been very calm and soothing and just relaxing. And gosh, we need those. We need those spaces. So thanks to Melinda and everybody at Free Mom Hugs for continuing to partner and collaborate with us. We love y'all. All the hearts. And then I'm also super excited to share news. More info is going to be dropping about this soon. A flyer is being finalized and all of that. But we are excited to be partnering with the House of Queer as well as the Body Electric to put on a anti-freeze benefit community event and drag show. And so I want all of you, I know there's not a graphic or a Facebook event or anything yet, but right now, stop what you're doing and mark down, because this is going to be fabulous. And we are going to raise a lot of money for mutual aid to support our neighbors in the Twin Cities metro area. And we're also looking at doing a fundraiser to potentially have folks bring in like winter gear donations to donate somewhere here locally as well. So more info to come, but there will be music, there will be aerial performances, there will be community resource tables that you can connect with. We're going to ask those community resources to have all their volunteer opportunities ready to go for you too, because we want you to connect. We know that everyone has a role in this time where Minnesota is under siege, as well as so many communities across our country right now. And so there's a way that you can get involved, and we're going to have them tell you how to get involved. There's also going to be like a silent auction. And again, some incredible drag performers are being lined up for a show. So that's going to be at the Depot on Friday. Let me pull it up to make sure. Yes, March 6th. So mark your calendars that evening. You're not going to want to miss this show. And then finally, as we sort of wrap up our event highlight section here, I do want to just name, there's a ton of things going on. I've already said that, but like Saturday, for example, I would like to highlight our friends and relatives over at ACO, the American Indigenous Community Housing Organization, is hosting their 11th annual Memorial March for missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives. And so if you have not been to that event, I would highly encourage it. I've been many years, and it is such a powerful display of community coming together in the face of just ongoing tragedy within the Indigenous communities of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. So please show up if you're available. That'll be at ACO starting at 10 a.m. And then for a different sort of pace event, there's like a new queer board game club that Outfront Minnesota is hosting, also happening Saturday afternoon. So board games, there's art clubs, there's so many ways that y'all can connect and find safe, inclusive community. So you can check that out again at our events calendar at that link below. So, that was so much of me talking. Thank you for bearing with me. Carver, I'm really excited to dive into our conversation here today, and for the folks to get to know a little bit more about who you are, because I've been so grateful to get to know you and call you my friend. And so as we start our conversation, tell us, what has it been like? What's your experience been like? You know, as you mentioned, coming out later in life as a trans man, coming out in a small town that you grew up in, that you now live in that home, that you grew up in. What has that all been like for you?
Wow, that's a lot right there, right? It's only an hour show. I grew up in the 60s, and we didn't have vocabulary. We didn't have any words to really describe or to relate to when it came to the transgender experience. And the feelings that I had, there was no way for me to wrap my head around it and explain it to the adults around me. And the adults certainly didn't have any education or information or resources in order to help me. And so growing up was, in my mind, it was basically learning how to conform to what everybody's expectations were for me. There wasn't any other options, or at least it felt like to me as a kid there weren't any other options. And spent most of my life conforming and learning how to accept and learning how to get along. I did not really learn about the transgender experience. I really didn't learn about what dysphoria was, and that there were words to describe how I felt, and that there was a medical community out there that was willing to support me on a journey if I chose to make that. as far as transitioning until I was in my early mid 50s. And it was shocking to me when I first met transgender people and realized that there was a connection there. It took me a while to actually wrap my head around it and to accept and come to the understanding that I am indeed transgender. It didn't happen like automatically. I had to put two to two together to come up with four, and a lot of times I wasn't coming up with four. And finally, it connected, and I went 2 + 2 is 4. Oh my goodness, I'm transgender. And in some ways, I think there's some easier things when you're an older person. It's easier to come to the understanding that you're transgender when you're older, especially if you're deciding to transition. But in other ways, I think it's more difficult than if you were 18 years old. And I imagine some of the easier things are, I'm not as dependent on parents as a young person would be for their acceptance and their love. I have my own support system, and I'm independent and can take care of myself. I think it'd be very hard when I try to put myself in a young person's standpoint or remember what it would have been like for me at 15 or 20, to come to that understanding and talk to the people that love me. But on the other hand, it can be a little bit harder. Again, from my experience, I can't speak for any other transgender person, but for me, it was harder because I spent decades learning how to get along and how to conform and how to ignore some of the voices in my head that were talking truly about what was in my heart, right? And you have to relearn some of those things, or permit yourself to relearn some things and become more of your authentic self. And it's decades that you have to kind of unravel in that regard. Yeah, and living in a small town. So right now I live in the town that I grew up in. I left when I was 18 after high school, went to college, went in the military, lived in a lot of different places, had a lot of different experiences. Came back, probably I was in my early 50s, maybe 50 years old when I came back, and then came to the realization that I was transgender. And when I decided to transition, I thought very hard about whether I wanted to go somewhere else to transition, or if I felt like I could do it in my town, both emotionally and physically safely. And I wasn't really sure. I really did not know how my town was going to react. It's a town of about 8,000, somewhat liberal. I mean, we're kind of a blue area in a red state, but that doesn't guarantee anybody's safety as well. I wasn't quite sure how it would be received. But I did decide to stay. And again, I think that is because I have a lot of protection and privilege as a transgender people that many other transgender folks may not be able to enjoy. Part of that being that I'm white, that I transitioned from female to male rather than male to female, which has its own challenges. I'm the boss where I work, so I wasn't going to fire myself. I wasn't going to have to worry about that. I have my own house, so I have housing security that many transgender people do not have. They have to worry about whether their landlord will evict them or not. All of those things add up. And another layer of privilege I have is that my transition's been fairly successful, and I pass 100% of the time. I walk into a room of strangers and I'm read as a straight white cisgender dude, and unless I tell people differently, that guarantees my safety, right? So I know my situation has been very unique. I have not had the problems in my small town as far as harassment or threats of violence that I had been concerned about. when I came out. And when I did come out, I came out fully, just 100%. So everybody in my town knows me. I have a very public facing job. So again, even people that didn't know me before, knew me as a kid, whatnot, they know me because of my position, because of my employment, and I'm out on my job as well. So it was a long answer to your question, but we're talking, I'm 64 years old. There's a lot to tell.
There's a lot to cover.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think you beautifully answered my very lengthy question. And it's very interesting. I always appreciate how you talk about all of the different privileges that you sort of have and hold, in your life and in your experiences, and like owning a home, and right, and in the white bodies that we, those of us who have those, and then masculine, all of the male privilege. I mean, I just have to say I really appreciate, I mean, that always comes out in our conversations, and it's like we have to, those of us who have all of these privileges, we can't just like say it one time and then like, okay, move about our days. Like, it is something to stay sort of intentionally focused on those pieces of who we are, because I think, as you and I have talked about, like, that's where our power comes from, and our ability to use that privilege and to navigate those rooms that our Black and brown trans relatives would not be able to easily access, and so how do we, I don't know. I think about this a lot, because it's like, man, I have so many times where I feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm scared, myself, to kind of walk out the door as a trans person, even with all of that privilege that I have. And yet, like, how do I continue to think about how do we use that power? Because that's what we got to be doing, using it for good, right? And so maybe we can be the ones who open those doors, and then like, come on, everybody. These are the folks who are going to do the talking now. And so I just wanted to name that you always mention that. And it was something that made me remember a story that you had told me that I'm curious if you'd be willing to share, after you started passing, right? And you started walking into the rooms, and people assumed, they look at you and see potentially a cis straight white man. And I'm wondering if you know what story I'm talking about, but there was like a particular queer event that you had wanted to attend, and you had some concerns about, the folks in that room, maybe having concerns about you, and like, who is this guy and should he be here? I don't know if you're willing to share a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was an event at a college where I used to work at, but I no longer worked at. I worked at it when prior to my transition, right? And I knew all the young people that were there. After I transitioned, I wasn't working there anymore, just coincidentally. And I returned there one evening to go to a drag show. And, that was one of my favorite things when I worked at that college, was to perform in the drag shows and cheer everybody on. And it was so much fun. And so I was really looking forward to going to this performance, but I didn't know any of the college students anymore. And I walked in prior to the performance starting, and looking like I do now. And I saw the looks on the students' faces as they turned around and looked at me. And the message that I was getting is they were trying to figure out if I was a threat to them or not, and if I was there to cause trouble, and why would this single older white guy in a flannel shirt be walking into their drag show performance, right? And it really got me smack dab in the heart, right? And I decided right then and there that I don't ever want anybody to wonder, when I walk into a room and they don't know me, if I'm a friend or if I'm a threat to them, right? So I also had learned, when I had worked at that college several years earlier, that a lot of the Alliance kids had been making these little rainbow pins. You can see that I'm wearing a little rainbow pin right now. It's just a little ribbon with a safety pin on it. and they handed them out generously throughout the year, and allies would pin them to their coat or their hat or whatever. And it's an immediate sign to anybody that sees them that they're an ally. And so when I went home that night, I got online and I ordered thousands and thousands of yards of that rainbow trim and safety pins. And I have been in production mode ever since. I don't know how many of these that I've distributed uh, throughout northern Wisconsin and to friends to bring wherever. I usually give out 10 at a time, and ask them to put one on and share 9 with their family or friends that are allies. And for folks that have never identified as an ally before, like they've never really thought about it, but now they're thinking about it because they want to provide support, it can be a real act of courage for them to put on a rainbow symbol on their body and walk out into their regular lives. Like if they go to the grocery store, is the clerk that's checking them out gonna give them the evil eye or say something nasty to them? Is the person sitting in the church pew next to them gonna point it out with some negative comments? And for some people it's not negative, or it's not comfortable to receive negative comments, right? But what we need more than ever right now is visible allies, and even a small symbol like a little ribbon. You don't have to say to somebody when you pass them on the sidewalk that I'm an ally, and they don't have to out themselves as being a queer person, right? Just they can see that. We know what that means, and you can pass by, and it's a connection that can be easily made just for the nickel that it costs to make a little rainbow pin. Yeah, so that's the story behind that, and I wear one all the time. I just think they're just amazing little pieces of sunshine that we can put on our clothing and help us connect with folks throughout our day.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I don't know that I realized, Carver, that was like that same night you went home and like the ribbon idea came to you. And yeah, I'm guessing there's thousands and thousands of those out and about now.
There,
Yeah, you did distribute a ton, and we'll talk a little bit more about some comedy shows where you also were distributing those, and I do think it is such a powerful thing. I certainly have added that as sort of like an ally action when I give these talks to folks. Like we've been doing a lot of church talks lately for churches in the Northland who are working on becoming welcoming and affirming congregations, which is wonderful. We need them all to be welcoming and affirming, but we're going to take what we get, and these new churches are standing up and saying we are affirming LGBT folks. And so I've been in these talks, and one of the things I always leave folks with are, here's like a tangible list of 4 or 5 things that are really easy for you to do to like kind of continue building as an ally, like building education, becoming visible, right? That's a huge piece because, I know there's so many folks in our queer community, in our trans community, we notice those things when we see them out and about. If I see a rainbow flag on a church, I'm much more likely to consider walking by there. Not even necessarily going in, right? Like we see those things out and about, and it does give us a signal, at least, not that is like, that's not what we need allies to be doing, like only. We need you to be talking to your family and friends and educating yourselves and the people in your lives about the issues that trans folks and queer folks are facing right now, which are extensive. But yeah, just, that's like a great baby step. If you're a new ally, hey, if you're an old ally and you don't have something hanging on your purse or your backpack or a bumper sticker on your car, there's a lot of queer folks and trans folks I know who removed those things after the election and who have made those choices to remove them for safety. And you as allies, y'all can be our shields. Like that's what we need you to be, is our visible shields showing up at these events, and letting us know that you are allies with that visibility. So I
Yep.
just want to say thanks. And also, it's a whole nother sort of conversation, but just this idea of who in the LGBTQ community do we welcome? What do those people look like? I think a lot of us in our queer and trans community have a lot of assumptions that we make as well about what it means to be queer, what it means to be trans or gender expansive, or what color skin or the clothes we wear. Like you showing up in that flannel shirt, in the Northwoods area does send a signal that maybe you're not safe. And I think there's validity there for sure, because we just have to be cautious, I think, as queer people in these more rural areas. And also, I hope that it does sort of like cause us to consider and be curious, like, who are we leaving out, who are literal members of our community, but we've sort of just made these assumptions, and how can we really be welcoming of all the members of our community at this time? So I don't know, something for me to think about for sure. So I appreciate that, Carver.
Another thing about being an ally, I mean, I've heard more often in the last year or so, which is great. People saying, if I see something going on that's not right, I'm gonna stand up and say something about it, right? And I appreciate people saying that, but the idea of waiting until something happens, I think we can do better than that in a lot of situations. And there's something that I call preemptive allyship that I think is really important. An example for me was when I came out, I made a Facebook post, and I remember very carefully crafting this statement about, to my friends and family and all of my Facebook friends, because they didn't know. I had actually transitioned during COVID while I was working at home remotely, and nobody knew I was transitioning. I got to do it in private, which is, wow, whoever gets to do that. But coincidentally, I got to, just because that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? But when it was time for me to go back to work, I decided, well, I better let people know I look a hell of a lot different than I did before COVID. And I wrote this long Facebook post and explained what dysphoria is, and that I'd chosen a new name, and hit the post button on my Facebook page, and I went, wow, you know what? I'm probably going to lose a lot of friends, and I'll probably get some negative comments here. Just kind of waiting for those to start rolling in, and it took about 60 seconds because it was a long paragraph that I'd written, but all of a sudden people started, the heart emojis, the thumbs up, the like emojis, and the comments started coming in, and it was, good for you. I love your new name. If you're happy, I'm happy. And they just started just scrolling down in my feed for that post. And there was over 200 positive comments. And unbelievably, there wasn't one negative comment that was made. And it's really important to point this out, because I do believe that the sheer number of people that made themselves visible as a supporter of mine by commenting discouraged any of the bullies from coming forward. That's what I really think happened, right? And that was 4 or 5 years ago now. And I think that's given me another layer of protection where I live in the online community. That preemptive allyship, that people were supportive of me. It's really important. It's really important to do that. So again, by putting ribbons on, by putting pride flag yard signs in our yards or the windows of our front porches, in our workplaces, you're sending messages to queer folks, right? That you are a friend. You are sending a message to people who maybe don't identify as an ally yet, but who would consider doing that. It gives them a little bit of courage to do so as well. And then thirdly, you're sending a message to the haters that don't don't even don't even with me, right? This is not the environment for you to be bringing up any of your nonsense. And that's all of those things are so important simply by displaying some symbol of being an ally preemptively before the bad things can even start. That's my opinion.
Woo! Woo! Carver. I mean, yeah, I love everything you said there. I mean, there's just I think such a depth to the ways that you've thought about this. And I just, yeah, I feel grateful that you're sharing not only with me but the people here, because there's I think that's something I remember, about maybe I'll sort of mention this before we move into our next question. But I know, you and I had talked shortly after the election. I think you had probably called to check in on me, and we were checking in together. And I just very vividly remember, I was feeling angry. I was thinking about, how do we take care of our community? How do we build safety? And then you came at it and you were like, Sean, there's all these people who are on the fence, who are also seeing all of this unfold. And they may never have said, I'm an LGBT ally. They may never have, picked a side. They've never shown up to a protest. These folks who, there's plenty of them living all around us, right? Just living their everyday lives, but they are seeing what's happening. And I think the fact that you went directly to those people on the fence, like, how do we connect with them? How do we educate them? How do we let them know, like, help them grow in their education and in their journey as potential allies, right? There's so many of those folks who they're not sure, right? And it just takes having a conversation with someone like you, or maybe checking out a queer event in their local community, right? Or if their neighbor comes out as trans, and it's like, oh, it's like this little gateway that they then can walk into that, and I think explore what it means to, I think, how we would say, be on the right side of history. Support all of your neighbors in your community, not just some. All of us deserve to live safe and affirming lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, this is my opinion. I don't have stats on any of this, but I feel like there's a certain segment of the population that are dyed in the wool supporters of LGBTQ folks. They're allies, and you're never going to change their mind. And I think there's another section over here of people who hate, and you're never going to change their mind. It's a lost cause. Don't even argue with them. And then there's this really big percentage in the middle of folks that they don't have information. They think that they don't know anybody who's queer or trans. They probably do, but they don't know that. But they're appalled by what's going on in our country today. And they don't know what to do about it because they don't have the information. They don't have the education. They don't have easy opportunity to do so. And those are the folks that we would love to reach and to help them along in their journey to becoming more supportive of everybody in their communities. But in this particular case, of course, we're talking about LGBTQ folks. Yeah. So important work. And whether it's an individual conversation that you have with a neighbor or a teacher or somebody in your faith, or you're doing more wider programming in a more structured level with fellowship organizations, book groups, your dog walking group. There's lots of opportunities to make headway, and all of these little steps, they add up. They do.
I couldn't agree more. They do. Some days I'm like, they're not adding up fast enough, Carver. But they are adding up, and there are more and more people who I believe, and we're all witnessing, who are being activated and who have never shown up and who are given funds to mutual aid funds and who are delivering groceries, right? In all these ways, right? In response to ICE and that escalation and just terror that Minnesota and lots of communities are experiencing right now with those federal folks. But yeah, okay. So I'm going to shift us here now, Carver. This is not a great transition. It's always funny when I throw that, but I'm ching. But I would love to get into, can you talk a little bit, you mentioned briefly in the beginning, kind of about the work that you do. I'm also going to expand this. Can you tell us about that, and your role there? But also you do things out in the community. I would love for you to share just a bit about some of like the training that you've done in partnership with healthcare folks. And then I feel like now might be a great time to mention that other fun summer thing that's coming up too, potentially.
Sure. So I've had a really eclectic career. My degree is in forestry, but I spent time in the Marine Corps. I've been a police chief. I've been a writer and an editor, an artist. I've done a lot of. I did everything that my high school guidance counselor told me not to do when you're trying to plan out your career. But it's brought me to this point now where I'm the director for a nonprofit, and we help people start businesses and turn what might be a hobby or a dream into a money-making venture with which an entrepreneur can make a living and provide a legacy for their children as well. And it's a lot of coaching, it's classes, it's a lot of relationship building. It's finding out where people are and where they want to be, and then going out and finding resources that are going to support them in the good work that they're doing in the journey of their personal lives. And it's been an incredibly rewarding job to have, and I have an amazing staff that I get to work with, and it's a helper type of job for sure. And there's those of us that gravitate towards jobs where we feel like we can be helpful, and I'm one of those relationship type people. So that's what I do during the day.
Whoa, and can I ask too? So if folks are interested in those services, do they have to live in Ashland? Do they have to live in Wisconsin? Or if someone was an entrepreneur, wanted to connect, how does that work?
So my nonprofit organization serves Ashland County primarily, which is where the city of Ashland is located in northern Wisconsin. But there are resources available throughout northwestern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota, by the way, other nonprofit organizations that do the same sort of work that we do here. And if anybody was interested in being connected with the organization that serves them, they can certainly contact me, and I'll connect them, because that's also a big part of what we do. I'm a small nonprofit. I can't provide all of the things that people need, but I bet you I know who can. I know a lot of people, and I have a lot of phone numbers and emails, and a big part of my job is trying to connect people with the resources to fill in the gaps for what they need for support. Yeah.
Nice.
So beyond that, a couple of years ago, I started working with healthcare providers, understanding, this started because I had come back from one of my transitional surgeries and needed physical therapy, and was getting physical therapy here in Ashland as I was recovering from my surgery. And my physical therapist said, we haven't met a lot of transgender people, certainly not a lot that have had transgender surgery. Wondering if you would be willing to do a lunch and learn with me and my colleagues and talk to us about the transgender experience, about transitional surgeries. We would like to become more comfortable and more confident in serving our patients. And so that was the start of something that is kind of growing. And I have been honored to have been invited to talk to several of the different healthcare providing organizations in northern Wisconsin. Sometimes it's virtual, sometimes it's in person. Uh, the the main goal is always to help them become more comfortable and more confident with working with all patients, right? Because they don't get that training in the medical field, and many of them want to make sure that they're providing a comfortable and safe environment for LGBTQ folks as well. And that's been really, really good, important work. I feel very good about the progress that we're making with healthcare providers and the fact that so many of them are interested in um, all that type of training for their shift workers and everything from mental health care workers to peri-op, uh, operating room folks and physical therapists and so on. I think there's a lot more work to do in that regard. So I'll continue to expand that and make myself available to do that. And if you are a healthcare provider or you have connections with healthcare providers that you think might be interested in that, I hope that they contact me. And then I'm going to go into a little bit about the show, Sean, if we have a little bit of time here before we head into the summer events.
Yep.
But I was driving home from Minneapolis this was about a year ago, I guess. And I was driving back on Highway 35 up to Duluth, and I was like, oh man, these healthcare programs are doing good, reaching a lot of folks, but man, the state of the country right now, I need to be talking to a lot more people if we're going to be encouraging people to become visible allies and be more open and visible for everybody, whether they're a healthcare provider or they're a teacher or they're a janitor, doesn't matter. We need to reach more people. We need to set up some comfortable barriers to protect people because things could get pretty rough in the future. And as I was driving along, I'm like, yeah, I need to be able to stand up in front of 100 people at a time or 200 people at a time. And that doesn't intimidate me at all in my job. I do presentations all the time. So it wasn't like a big deal to think about talking in front of people. It's a little bit of a big deal to talk about strangers, about your body though. And to be vulnerable as a transgender person, I can say over and over again that I have protections and privileges that other transgender people may not have, but that doesn't mean I'm completely feel safe going in front of a crowd of people and talking about myself. And in order to be able to really, really connect with people and have them humanize the transgender experience, I need to be 100% open with them about my journey and some of the most vulnerable things about that, right? So yes, I decided while I was driving back to Ashland through Duluth that I was going to start doing a show, and part of the show was going to be about providing information and education. Part of the show was going to be about giving them ideas, the audience ideas about how they could become visible allies and preemptive allies. And then because I don't want it to be too dry and vanilla, and also because going through second puberty at the age of 58 um, resulted in a heck of a lot of funny situations for me. I decided that the third part of the show was I was going to weave in a lot of comedy into it and tell some of the funny things that have happened to me and some of the situations that I have been in that are really rather ridiculous, and you have to have a sense of humor about, right? And so I started these shows last spring, started in the Schwabingen Bay area, and I'm going to be expanding them yet this spring and this summer throughout northern Wisconsin and hopefully northern Minnesota as well. And it's an interesting time to be doing that. But I always have people come up to me after the shows and talk to me about somebody they know or maybe themselves, and needing to make connections with somebody or connections to resources like Trans Northland. And it's a way to reach a lot of people really quickly. And I think that's where we need to go. So yeah, so that the next thing that I'd like to talk to you about is, again, an experience that I had when I was young. When I was 7 years old, I was able to go to a camp in northern Wisconsin, uh, down by Saint Germain. And this camp had been well established, beautiful camp on a small lake with these beautiful old cabins. And they had started a week-long session for families that had developmentally um, uh, disabled children in them. And I have an older brother who's developmentally disabled. And so my family went to this camp when I was 7 years old. And it was the first time that I got to see my mom, who was a single parent of 6 kids. My dad had left the family shortly after I was born. Um, get to connect with other parents of developmentally disabled kids and sit down and talk about all the emotions of doing this in the 1960s when there weren't very many resources, the fear, the anger, the guilt, all of those things. It made quite an impact on me, even as a kid, to see how important that was to my mom to be able to connect with parents in similar situations. And then for me, it was the first time I got to run around in the woods and catch frogs and paddle a canoe and, fun things like that. And so this last summer, I went online to see what that camp was doing, and I said, why don't we have a camp session for uh, families and single people who are part of the queer community that might not feel completely comfortable going to other camps, right? I can imagine, especially for transgender children, going to like a all children's camp where you've got to share a cabin with 10 other kids, or there's expectations of what swimming suit that you're supposed to wear rather than the one that you feel comfortable in. Um, why don't we start a camp for queer folks? And so that's what we're doing. And this summer, June 10th through the 14th, will be our very first season, our first session. Again, this is for families that have LGBTQ people in them, or individuals. It is for folks of any faith or no faith. Uh, the camp is actually owned by a Christian denomination, but there are no boundaries on folks coming. And this will not be a camp session that is religious based at all. And it will be an opportunity for all family members to be able to connect with other families that have similar situations and similar challenges, and a way for us to bond and connect and roast some marshmallows and sing some campfire songs. And Sean, I'll be passing you more information. The marketing is getting finished just today. I'll be passing you more information along with some links to the camp registration site, so that people can read more about it online at the camp's website and potentially register for that. It's pretty exciting. It's only 4 months away, so don't tarry, don't linger. This camp happens shortly after most schools end, in early June.
Yep, so, and that will be right after Trans Joy Fest, y'all. So continue the joy and go to camp. I know I am going to try to get there with my 7-year-old kiddo. I've never been to camp myself, and she hasn't either. And so we are very much hoping to get there, and all of you should also come join us. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I want to make sure that it's really clear that this is for not just transgender people, it's for all queer people, any orientation, any age, young people, old people as well. This is a very inclusive group of people that are going to be joining us. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to call. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so pumped. So thank you so much for sharing about that, Carver, and just for all of the cool ways that you are showing up and building community. I just love it. I love to be a part of it. And all of y'all should join us because this is great. And holy cow, we're like already out of time. So I'm going to throw up the question that we always ask our guests at the end because we know we need to be taking care of ourselves, especially these days. So Carver, what are 1 or 2 ways that you are taking care of yourself these days?
Yeah. Well, the first one is I'm trying to drink a lot of water because I tend to forget to drink water. Yeah. So, but the second way is I realize that when I go home from work at night feeling kind of exhausted from all of my contact with people, I tend to feel a lot of anxiety about what's going on in the world, and I get my phone out and I'm doing this, and my anxiety is increasing, and I'm isolating myself because of that. And I decided that I am going to intentionally create time in the evenings and on my weekends to reach out to people that I know care about me and who are positive people, even if it's just to have a phone call with them. But if I can have some in-person time with them, 30 minutes to go get a cup of coffee together, to share a hug, but intentionally put myself in the path of people that are kind to me, to make sure that if those days that I forget to take care of myself, that those folks will wrap me up in a big bear hug. And I think those things are important. It's hard to do when we're feeling exhausted and anxious, though. It really is. But those positive people, they're all around us. We just forget to raise our head up from our phone and look at those people in the eyes that really, really do love us.
Wow. Gosh, friend, I'm just really grateful to get to call you one of my friends, one of my folks. And I'm grateful for the ways you've checked in with me and just all the ways that you are helping and growing a safe, inclusive community right where you're at in Ashland. And I know that that is more expansive, especially with these upcoming comedy shows. I swear, I've been talking to you for several months about we got to do a Trans Northland comedy night. So someday that I won't let that go. I'm going to just keep bugging you. We got to pull in our friend Danielle Thrombo, who's also
right.
On the show, gosh, a while ago now. But yeah,
Right,
Danielle, I think, has a similar style of wanting to educate and like open folks' minds in that way. So it'll be a lot of fun.
She's a lot funnier than I am. I got to tell you.
You're both funny. You're both funny. So, well, yeah, thanks again, Carver, for just, opening up and sharing so much of your story, which, you know, as you said, like there's a lot to it. You can't cover everything in an hour, but I really am grateful. And I think the folks who have been listening and watching also are grateful. So if you're still there, throw some love in the comments for our dear friend Carver. And next time in 2 weeks, I'm very excited to bring on some more friends of mine, the awesome hosts of the amazing Transgender podcast. Let's see if I can make this pop up. Oh, there they are. Oh, look. Raven and Cam Kruger are going to be our next guests, joining us live with Trans Northland. And this podcast, if you haven't heard of it, they've been doing a little bit of a hiatus, but they have so many amazing episodes that are hilarious, educational, and they just really share in a very authentic, like vulnerable way, their journey together as parent and child. And so their write-up is, this is a podcast that is a funny, touching, and informative chronicle of Raven, a transgender woman, and Cam, Fair's cisgender dad, as they share their experiences of growing together and hating bigots. So more to come from those two in 2 weeks at noon right here live with Trans Northland. As a reminder, you can check out our events calendar to find a way to get connected into community. Find something fun to do that's right up your alley. There's lots of options out there, so you can check out our events calendar on our website there. And as always, subscribe, follow. You know how to find us. We love all of y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining the conversation today. And again, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Heck yes. Well, thanks again for tuning in, friends, and we will see you back in a couple of weeks.